Okay, I guess that's rolling. Wow, I guess I really chose the wrong time to get out chocolate. Should never practice new music on an empty stomach. I'm making this video with some specific students in mind. Who I'm playing this amazing piece by the Danish composer Hans Abrahamsen, Schnee, or Snow, I almost said, later this week as part of a festival at the Bard Conservatory as a Kurtag festival. This is programmed by and will be conducted by Benji Hochman. Wanted to make this video not kind of as a performance practice, and this is going to melt if I don't eat it. I'm just going to eat it. All right, good. Finished my chocolate. Want to make this video to talk about how to practice music like this. One of the things that playing modernist music makes you do, and I would consider this to be modernist music. It's kind of in a bit of a stylistic gray area because there are elements of this piece that are post-minimalist, post-spectralist, but also sort of postmodern in the sense of it's not so concerned with completely rejecting everything from the classical canonic past. Modernism in the 1950s, especially sort of caught up with the great traumas of World War II, was really concerned with kind of deconstructing everything to do with music. Pitch, rhythm, timbre, gesture, physicality on stage, everything had to be controlled because if it wasn't controlled, we were all going to turn into Nazis. That's literally the mentality of composers in Europe in the 1950s. This is written in 2006. 2007, Abrahamsen was born in the 1950s. The pain and struggle and torment of World War II it's there, it's present, it's talked about, but it's not something that Abrahamsen himself had to live through. However, there are still shadows of that mentality, and that mentality is one in which you do kind of have to question everything, and you can't just slot into some sort of comfortable, well, this is just, I've played 8 Mozart sonatas and, what's one more? It's just going to be kind of the same. Well, I've played Beethoven before. I kind of know how Beethoven goes. There are ways in which we generalize the music of the past that you can't really with music like this. You have to treat every piece, every gesture, every idea as something you basically don't really know how to do. You've never done it before, not like this. And at the very least, you have to find the kind of absolute specificity of each gesture that you're dealing with. So there are a few things I wanted to address, mostly just for how you practice this kind of thing. So I wanted to jump ahead to this stuff. So these very repetitive, minimalist-like structures. And actually, I'll jump ahead to the canon in which I'm playing so I can look at my own part. The trickiest thing about each of these little cells of material is the fact that you have to go back and repeat it. Playing what's inside the bar is actually not that bad. It's not too difficult. It's difficult, but in some cases, but that's not the worst part. The most difficult part is snapping back to the beginning of the bar, playing it through a second time, and then moving on. It actually requires a surprising amount of mental labor. In music like this, you have no time to think about anything. Thinking is like you're screwed. The moment you think, you'll be late. The moment you think, you play a wrong note. You have to take this material and stuff it into your subconscious so that every single gesture is something that you can just do automatically. The problem is none of these things are going to feel automatic right out of the gate. So you have to approach them as if you were a child and you had never played this material before. And the best way to do that is just rote repetition. I have an app. Oh, actually, I got it here on my iPad called Metronome Beats. It's a really inspired name. The great thing about this metronome is that you can set the tempo of the metronome to be extremely high. Most metronomes will cap out around 300 something, or even just right at 300. So if we look at this tempo here, we see we have dotted quarter equals 108. So if you multiply that times 3, so you're getting the value for each of these eighth notes, you get 324. So this metronome actually allows you to go up way past this, up to, I think, 900. That'll be useful for something, I'm sure. But in this case, actually being able to set the metronome to those specific eighth notes is really useful. Etc., etc. So you can actually set it to the precise tempo you'll be playing. We also have down here a few slower tempo. What I like to do is practice slowly, no less than 75% tempo. So this is now 75% of 324. Slow practice is useful, but you have to be strategic about how you use slow practice. The problem with slow practice, so far as your body is concerned, is that you're practicing a different piece. Your body doesn't recognize that when you speed that up to tempo, if you're practicing it at like half tempo or quarter tempo, your body won't recognize that you're playing the same music. You know, you're having to move to, you know, if you're shifting from one position to the next, it's at such a different speed that your body will feel like it's never done it before. So what I've found is you should practice kind of no less than 75% tempo. Not that there isn't moments or there aren't opportunities where it does help to really practice slower than that, but you really have to be strategic. So what I've liked for this is setting this to the full tempo, 324, and then setting the kind of slow tempo percentage to about 85% tempo. So far as your body's concerned, that's still going to be ballpark, but it will be slow enough that you can keep up with everything that you're doing. So the way I practice this is each of these units, each of these cells, I just loop it until I am so comfortable with it physically that my ear is allowed to wander a little bit through the texture. You know that you're comfortable with material when your ear is free enough to listen to something a little bit different each time. You know it enough that you have the freedom to listen. In music like this, your only real obligation is to listen. That's the only thing you really should be thinking about, is listening. If you don't know your part well enough, you can't listen. You don't have the brain power for it. So the way I practice this, and this is going to be a little different for everyone's parts, but it's generally the same idea. I'm going to turn the metronome back on. Two, three, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. That was just bar 1, right? So now move on to bar 2, now that bar 1 is really comfortable. Okay, great. Bar 2 is great. Now bar 3. And sorry, it's a little inconvenient that I have to go over there. With every repetition, and I've obviously already practiced this way, so this is comfortable for me. Maybe I'll find something that I know is uncomfortable, just to demonstrate feeling like a total ass. I'm allowing my ear to listen to something a little bit different with each repetition. If my ear has the freedom to listen differently each time, I know it. I know I'm comfortable with it. I'm going to jump ahead to something that I know will cause me problems. Yes, one of these. I'm going to start down here at 89. This is at the bottom of the, or 70, 78, 78, at the bottom of the page. Let's turn that metronome back on. Okay. That's 85% tempo. Okay. Etc., etc. I know I'm getting comfortable because I can kind of step back. I have it suddenly find that I have it memorized after a few repetitions. I have it in my ear, and I can wander around through it. I can listen to, oh, this, I have never listened to this note before, or this interval. Oh, I've never listened to that collection of notes in the middle of the gesture. Once your ear can wander, you know you're comfortable with it. I would do that for every single one of these bars, every single one of these gestural units. So for this, I mean, your part is going to look differently. This is kind of a microcosm of how you need to practice this music. A lot of modernist music is fragmentary. The whole idea is that we take something that maybe we know, a gesture, a cadence, something that is part of the classical canon, and we strip it down to its component parts and explore each of those components. That basically explains all music in the 20th century, is that mentality, that attitude. You have to practice this in little pieces and then gradually expand it outwards. Oh yeah, this would be a good one here at just the bar after Q. That is something that I know will kick my ass. So let's turn this back on. Set it to 85% tempo. Nope. Cat knows I'm doing something, so she wants to be in the middle of it. You can go back here. Okay. Nope, I rushed. Etc., etc. Loop it until it's comfortable. Yeah, the place our ears will typically not be so comfortable with is anything that's inside of a texture. So in this particular section, it would be these notes. Anything that's inside the texture, that F to G flat. I'm probably least likely to pay attention to that material that's inside. Let me jump ahead to something else similar. A couple bars, 3 bars at the bottom of the page, 175 to whatever that is, 5, 6, 7, 8. 5, 6, 7, 5, 177. Okay, so turn that metronome back on. Etc., etc. Yeah, the Problem with this piece is, you know, it doesn't look that hard on the page. It doesn't look like much. This is, you know, no big deal, right? These rhythms right here, right? This little period of time here, those rhythms are so subtle and have to be so precise and almost Schubertian in their beauty and precision, that not only is the rhythm in tune. I think it's important to think of rhythms as being in and out of tune when you play this music. In the same way that we think of intervals as being in and out of tune, rhythms are a kind of interval. It's an interval of time. Those rhythms can be in or out of tune, and probably they need to be more in tune than not. But they're so subtle, so delicate, it's worth taking the time to really explore them, really listen to them, and really dial them in to sound exactly the way you'd want them to. And the only way to do that is to just repeat it until you're able to listen inside the texture in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise. Jump ahead to this stuff. So a few of you have this material. Classically, the way you might go about practicing this is practice it slowly, obviously, especially if you're trying to figure out fingerings, which for something like this is really essential. Now, a few things to point out here. In the parts, this is really not very clear, but we have these little swells. And actually, let me get rid of my notation so that you can see how this works. So you have these little swells here. This is a little clearer in the score. You'll notice that these swells go to the highest, except here. This is a mistake. This is a mistake. These swells go to the highest note of every gesture. He writes in sempre simile. I understand why typographically that was done. I think that's a mistake on the part of the publisher. I think they absolutely should have written in every single swell. And so I think you should. A simpler way to do this, and you may have seen this a moment ago, is I just put a slash through the highest note of each little phrase. And you can see the notes go down, then they come back up again, then they go down. So it's always the highest note of every grouping of notes. I just put a line through the highest note of each group. And I just know that that line means this is the note that is swelled. Swole. This is the note that's swole. Okay, do that for the whole page. Don't take anything for granted. Your brain will thank you later. And actually at the end here, we have this crescendo, so I don't need to worry about that. That sort of overrides the mini crescendos. Okay, so classically the way you do this is you would practice it really slowly. Right, I'm sure you've done this. That's useful for figuring out fingerings, for example. Which fingerings, which hand position, which string am I going to play this on? Which side key am I going to use? Whatever it is. Here's the problem. This cannot be the end of your practicing. Like, well, I practice it slowly and I can't play it faster, so it's a problem with the music. This music is going to go really fast. Let's get that tempo. I can just get that here. 120. Ah, shit. Like that, sort of. Mostly that was right. I practiced this. You have to practice it at tempo. You have to teach your body what it's actually supposed to do. But here's the trick. Don't just try to blast through it and expect things to just work one day. It won't, I promise. It'll take years. You'll hate yourself. You'll quit. Don't do that. Practice in chunks. Just like with the sort of minimalist movement with those cellular units that you literally do have to repeat. And the way I practice them is I just repeated that whole cell until I was so comfortable with it that my ear gets bored and starts wandering other places. Do the same here. We'll turn the metronome on and we're going to practice this much in tempo, from beat to beat. It's important you do this in a way that is actually relevant to how the music will be played. Sometimes teachers will suggest that you practice difficult passage work in rhythmic groups. So let's take, for example, a dotted rhythm, something like this. Again, maybe useful for finding hand position or fingerings or tuning or whatever, but you're not going to play it that way, ultimately. We're going to be getting beats from the baton, from the conductor. We have to play the music in relationship to those beats. So go from beat to beat. So I'm going to play just the first beat with the metronome on. Turn that on. And as I get comfortable with it, with every repetition, I try to ask my ear to hear something different every time. Some part of that phraselet that I maybe hadn't listened to before. Maybe I listened for that lowest note, that low B. Or maybe I listened for the C sharp in the middle of the texture, or that D sharp to E. It's almost like a leading tone. The point being that you develop a relationship with every note in this gesture, and you're developing that relationship in tempo. So let's now do beat 2. It'll be the same idea, except now I'm going to go from this beat to the first note of the next beat. You don't know what's going on in my head, but as I was practicing this, one thing I was noticing is that I wasn't quite hearing that E to F every time I was playing it. I think most technical problems can be solved through slightly deeper listening. And I say slightly because, nothing in musical practice is ever massive leaps. It's always incremental, little tiny bits at a time, one little bite. So ask tiny things of yourself each time. I just want to be able to hear that E to F. It's getting better. It's sort of sacrificing now the D sharp to the E, but don't do anything. Just ask yourself, can I hear it? Okay, now the next beat. So that'll be from the F down to the D. Now notice the intervals. So we went from a C sharp to an E, an E up to an F, and then an F down to a D. All right, so there's a little bit of a pattern there. C sharp, E minor third up, E up to F, then that's a minor second, then F down to D, minor third. So we had minor third first, and then minor third later. Let's try that last beat with the metronome on. Okay, it's easier. Now the E flat to the D is not quite clear. I'm not quite hearing it. But, you just insist, I have to hear it. And as you practice it, if you insist on being able to hear it, eventually you'll be able to hear it. So let's put now 2 of these together. So maybe I'll do these 2, followed by these 2. Do it again. Now, one thing I just noticed is every time I was playing this, I was getting a little louder. You have to make sure you play this in the dynamic in the character, exactly the way you're going to play it ultimately, just in tiny chunks. If you're playing this, mezzo forte or louder, that has no relationship to how you're ultimately going to play it, so this practice is not very useful. So now let's try those second set of 2 beats. Okay, now let's put all that together. So that's from downbeat of the first bar to the second beat of the second bar. And as I got comfortable with the stuff in the left hand, I started asking my ear, can I hear the legato connection between those 2 sets of dyads? Again, it's, every technical solution begins with, can I hear thing X? Whatever it is, legato, is it in tune? Is it on time? Whatever the question is, you have to hear it. It doesn't matter if you're doing something that makes you feel like you're doing it. You have to hear it. If you can't hear it, you can't possibly expect someone in the audience to hear it. This is a lesson that applies as much to Abrahamsen or Stockhausen or Xenakis or Boulez or whoever as it does to Mozart, Brahms, Beethoven, and Bach. That's why music like this actually helps with the old stuff. We can get really lazy when we play only the old stuff because, we've listened to 1,000 recordings of, Gil Shaham playing the Beethoven Sonata something or other. So we just take it for granted. But maybe we haven't listened to Boulez's Second Sonata as much as, Brahms' Third Symphony. And so it wakes your ears up. It makes you listen in ways that you wouldn't have otherwise. This music always helps the old stuff. The old stuff can help this music. This music is looking back at the old stuff. But the performance practice, the sort of calcified conservatory culture doesn't always help you with this music. You'll look at it and be like, well, I just can't do that. And the thing is, you can. You just haven't learned how yet. So you have to start with your ear. Can I hear whatever? Ask that question first. Okay? Practice in chunks, small pieces. Don't try to bite it all off at once. You have to do small units and then put them together. And practice as much as is possible, as closely as possible, to the tempo you'll actually be playing in. These octave bits are a pain in the ass. Practice that a little bit just so you can hear. Actually, and actually, looks like, I don't think they're the same swells in this material as there is before. I might be wrong about that, but I think in this higher octave stuff, he doesn't want that. It's only in the low end that he wants that kind of race car, sort of effect. So I'll just apply the same principle practicing this. Making sure I stay pianissimo. so on, and so on, and so on. So you can see I'll start with something very small. I'll add something to it so I'd know how to get out of it and also know how to get into the next thing. Then I'll do that next thing on its own, then add something to that, then back up to the first thing I did and do the second thing and the third thing together. Some sort of, I don't know if this is the right way to put this, telescoping in and out, right? I'm doing just a small amount of material, then expanding it to have it be a part of a phrase, loop that a few times, changing how I listen to something different each time, as being a little bit less obsessive than usual, just to sort of demonstrate. But you're moving in and out, but always in tempo, always sort of shifting the attention of my ear to something that maybe I hadn't thought to listen to this particular interval before. What's there? One thing I didn't pay attention to this time was the intervals in the background. So we have from D to F, then F to F sharp, then F sharp to D sharp, oops, too far, D sharp to C, C to D, D to D is the same, so with stuff like this, you need destination points. You need small destination points, but also large destination points. This whole big long phrase begins on D and ends on D. That's useful. It's useful to know that you have that trajectory to look ahead to. So I think I'll leave it there. Just make sure that you practice this music the way you are actually going to play it in real life. Don't just play it way out of tempo and hope the rest fixes itself. Play it in tempo, practice it in tempo, but practice it in small, manageable pieces where you're giving yourself, your ear, your brain enough time to really take in all this information. Because when you play this music, when you perform this music, you don't have time to think. Don't think. Think when you're practicing, so that when you come to the performance, you're able to just listen to the rest of the group. Okay, have fun.